Hell yeah. In the Northwest, we have the blue Terran player representing Team Liquid. He is Clem.
Oh, big meaty rift for the little French man. His opponent in the Southeast, he is the Russian Protoss player representing Cascade Gaming. It is SKillous.
SKillous has had an absolutely dominant performance in this group, right? SKillous has kind of been balling out of control. He's been memeing and dreaming and wheeling and dealing. And I was going to say probably the biggest surprise of the interview that we had from that last series was that Geralt was saying he wants to play versus Zerg. And I'm like, want to play PvZ? Okay. Okay. That's a shocker. But, you know, looking at this group was actually fun how competitive it was, I think, just because it was so much Protoss and Terran and really just the one Zerg player, but not really one of the dominant ones, unfortunately, sitting at the bottom of the group. So for me, that kind of made this group wide open. And it was really, really cool to see that a player that usually would struggle against those upper European Zerg players is actually found himself in a quite comfortable position, you know, just dominating. And with an 8-2 map score, that says so much. Could actually still take first place in the group just based on the standings that we're seeing there, right? Like, he's only dropped 2 maps. Clearly, he is vibing like nuts for this tournament. He has been in peak condition, I feel. I don't know that I've ever had so many good things to say about a SKillous run in a tournament, and I mean that as a compliment. He's dominating.
And it's really cool to see like a couple of these Protoss players that previously sat in the middle of the pack really start to push up. I mean, beating Clem, going back to Geralt, is incredible, and they'll harness him. SKillous, if he can pick up the same victory and put himself into that upper echelon, we're in for something a little bit juicy. But little Clement being a very naughty boy.
Yes, naughty indeed. So the Reaper pokes the pylon and is like, yeah, you know, that's it's a standard thing. You never really expect to do anything with that type of play, but he's got that one bunker, and this is just meant to be the no, you're not transferring probes down here, right? You can't force anything to happen with this. It's more to be an annoyance, try to draw out something from your opponent, and if they, you know, it's kind of like as Tasteless might say, like a little bit of like a bop it type thing. If your opponent really screws up, then you can actually lose stuff to this, but you shouldn't. It's a little close there. I mean, the Stalker took real damage, which I already feel like is a bit, that's a drop ball right there.
Yeah, I mean, behind this, Clem's natural is down, orbitaling up, producing SCVs. He's going to get that sort of YOLO Helium we see a lot of Protoss players get in the early game. This is so cute.
Quick cheeky grenade. I love it. This is dirty. Look at that. It's already burned. He had to burn an overcharge. Okay, well, this is you just took away 30 seconds of crazy fast probe production from your opponent with that. And
oh no, if he gets a probe or two now as well, which is certainly looking likely. Clem, this early game is just going so far in his favor. 3 probes, it's brutal. No one should get this much damage off the back of just 2 Reapers.
No, this is dirty.
This is so
dirty. I mean, Protoss is supposed to be up significantly in worker count versus Terran. That's how the matchup is designed to play out in this current metagame that we've been in. So not only did he deny him a chrono boost by forcing the early battery overcharge, he gets the scout on the fast third, so he knows that it won't be like a 2-base all-in coming his way. And to boot, just the fact that he didn't actually have to do a cheese to get that damage done. This was just a Reaper expand, except he built 2 Reapers and used his scouting SCV to build a bunker. Like, it's not like this was some sort of crazy all-in where he invested a ton and it was really high risk, high reward. No, it was low risk, low reward. But like I said, if you make one little mistake against this, all of a sudden you're like, oh, actually 2 Reapers in a bunker behind my mineral line actually did end up messing me up, despite the fact that I didn't move any workers there.
Yeah, and behind this, we see Clem's getting his +1 very well timed. Tank production's begun. He should be throwing down his third, I guess, relatively soon. It's kind of surprising to see it not started. How many racks is he looking at right now, Nate? So only 3 racks. Do you think we will see a third, or is Clement going to take his advantage and roll with it?
Well, he's got the 3-rack setup. There's no reactor on the starport yet, I think, is the big delayer for this game. Like, he's going to take the Raven with the Marines. Considering how many Protoss players, you kind of go back and forth between doing the Blink Stalker shenanigans, I do like Raven openers. They're hard to control units, but if you're not leaving your base, which you can't really leave your base in Terran versus Protoss until you have, multiple medevacs, stim, combat shield +1, or, just a lot of Protoss usually will have like Stalkers sharking around the map. That isn't what's happening in this game, but he's playing things relatively close to the chest. I think Clem's trying to take that position of, I should be able to win if this just goes to a late macro game. So that confidence is going to be shown a little bit in his patience, shall we say, of not trying to force the issue. While yeeting a Hellion into the main, by the way, he saw that Colossus, so he knows.
But okay, 3rd does now go down for Clem. It is quite late at the 6-minute mark. SKillous, of course, going for that very quick 3rd SKillous now up 11 workers. Math is hard. But Clem's got everything he kind of needs going now. He's getting medevacs, he's getting marauders. After a few medevacs, he should know that he can go into Viking, if that is going to be what he chooses to do versus Colossus. And we have a bit of push coming in from Clem here. How many tanks are currently in this army? 3 tanks, and they are coming. So there's certainly potential if some damage could be done at the 3rd here, alongside the Raven with all of that energy for interference matrices. Clem's got a pretty dangerous push coming along.
Yeah, it's still scary to watch this a little bit for a few reasons. The medevacs are going to catch up with this army a little bit after he reaches this spot. I'm wondering if he's going to go for 2 interference matrices, or if he's going to instead try to use the turrets or a Dorito cannon on the Zealots, because this army is actually pretty good versus Marine tank. The Zealots can bait shots from the tanks. The Marines can't just run up straight to the Colossus without that. And he does use the interference matrix, but this is what I was talking about. The overcharged shield battery is going to help the Zealots move forward, try to push the bio back. However, I don't know that he has enough of them. Even with the tank fire, those Zealots are largely taking huge damage on their shields and hit points. You can see quite a few of them. And he's not actually reached the nexus to the point where he can threaten killing it yet. He needs to move his tanks forward if he wants to do that, but that, of course, would be quite dangerous for him to attempt.
Yeah, these Brood War Zealots on the chase, seeing if they can catch a tank or two on the retreat. This tank looking in the face of impending doom. Medevac might be able to save it. It's not going to be the case here. He's going to stand and fight with his bio forces, but doesn't want to commit as soon as, of course, those tetrapods get into range. Forced to spin backwards here. This is a nice chase by SKillous. Clem, I'm kind of surprised, not just lifting up and getting out of there. He does save the tanks, and that's all fine and dandy here. But behind this, we do see our Protoss player, who should be looking for a 4th base very shortly. He does have a Templar Archives, and we will see Storm starting off pretty quickly. The main thing right now, I would say, though, is Clem is up an upgrade, and soon to be up 2 upgrades. And in PvT, if we go long, that's really, really going to have a big impact.
Yeah, especially if you want to play with a lot of Zealots, right? Like, how exactly are you going to have those Zealots tank for your army when they're not able to do the one thing that they're good at, which is, tank shots, because they have that one armor built in. So they usually scale really well with the armor ups. Now, that of course means the Colossus with the attack upgrade focus are going to be able to deal damage to the Marines, but he has to be very careful. He has to coddle those Colossi. He needs to keep them safe. There's been very little Stalker usage in this game, pretty much at all. Outside of like a handful. He is going to get Blink, and I assume he's going to have to start cranking out lots of Stalkers if he wants to be able to keep Vikings off of his Colossi.
Small run by here by Clem, going to find a little bit of damage. 3 probes, getting everything out. Nice moves there by the Frenchman. We do see a Dark Giant on the way here. SKillous looks to add in all of that late game tech, but Clem has added on his Ghost Academy, and we see this more and more. All of these pro players, the one thing they say about Clem is his multitasking and his unit control is arguably some of the best in Europe. He plays at like 950 APM or something ridiculous.
Well, I mean, so a lot of that stuff gets blown up by the hotkey setups that players use. But yes, he's a very fast player. I don't think I'm ready to say that anybody is actually capable of 900 APM. Just
you, Nate, and your dog.
Just my dog, yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, you see, that's because the dogs can use all 4 paws at once, so that actually makes sense. And the tail, exactly. 200 APM per appendage. So he's got a big tank push behind this again. The siege tanks and the Vikings will be great for zoning out the Colossi, but this is kind of a dive army almost for SKillous. When you're relying on this many Zealots, you really need to catch your opponent before they can get that position on you and contain you. But the Dorito cannon onto the Zealots, onto the Colossi, that's going to benefit every single unit that Clem has for this fight, and it does affect the shields as well. So that's going to put any of these units, keep in mind, he didn't get any armor upgrades, so his Zealots are at -2 armor right now. They take +2 damage for every shot with that Dorito cannon on. Now it is starting to wear off, but most of the Zealot shield has been killed. The tanks need to target fire the Colossi, though. Archons are pushing the bio back.
Yeah, the Archons just standing so strong. That Dorito cannon running out just in time for those Archons to be able to tank that little bit longer. A nice
Prism in the main.
With the Prism as well here from SKillous, finding a good amount of not great. He didn't really kill many workers. A good amount of distraction here. And now SKillous is pushing in at the front. Clem's army is looking a little bit beaten up. He is still even in army supply. But, I mean, what's the Viking count now? There's no left.
They all died. That's the most. So I was about to say, all the Vikings died. He only had medevacs in production. So the Warp Prism, there's actually nothing that can just kind of, you know, right click on it and it's eventually going to die or have to run away. The Prism is continuing to bounce back and forth between the main and the natural. And those Zealots coming in, I mean, he's warping in upwards of like 16 to 20 supply per wave there with the number of gateways he has on 5 bases. And that fourth hardly established for Clem, taking a pounding. Even though he hasn't lost too many of his workers, he's spending so much of his attention, that APM we were talking about, going back and forth between his bases. Thank God the missile turret in the one spot to take out that unit on the way out. But I do want to call attention to one more thing that I actually really like SKillous has done in this game, and that is, if you look at his vision, he's just got units spread out. There's not really observers on the map for him, but he's got Zealots watching the edges. He's got Zealots watching the main paths. He has a pylon in the northeast. SKillous has a tremendous amount of map vision and awareness, including sieged observers in that airspace outside of his base. So it's going to be very difficult for Clem to make a move out without being spotted. And he sees that big army coming down the middle now. So he should have some inkling that the heat is on.
Yeah, I mean, DT's added. Shadow Stride is already 2/3 of the way done. And these Blink DTs are going to provide so much nuisance. Now, Clem does scan and see, okay, he hasn't got that base yet. I'm not that far behind. Clem is also adding on Ghosts. But the best thing, and I really agree with what you said with SKillous getting so much vision, is he has disruptors, and disruptors are units that are best when they can flank or come from a surprise angle, and you need vision to do that. So SKillous has all of his potential now. Now Clem is starting to find a little bit of leeway. Oh, these prisms too far forward. There's 2 of them together, which is always interesting. But they are going to be able to escape, and Clem now pushing out quite aggressively down towards the east side of the map here. And he is mapped, so looking for a little bit of a fight, I think.
Yeah, well, he gets the jump on him. Siege Tank gets caught. Those DTs with Shadow Stride do get EMP'd, but, you know, just having the ability to force out all of those extra scans while he was attacking him constantly was definitely nice. I like the Planetary at the 4th, though, to cover his back. At the same time, is he going to try to use Interference Matrix on the Disruptors? Yes! So those are removed from the equation. That actually allows him to take a pretty nice fight, because he doesn't really have too much that can actually deal the damage outside of the Colossi and the Disruptors. And as he falls back to the tanks, I actually really like that trade for Clem. Sitting up pretty now, 97 army supply to 82. Still has his 4th. Vikings are going to catch the Prism with a missile turret on the north side, excuse me, and just doing a really, really good job.
Yeah, Clem keeping all of his units alive as well. He's now going for that Doom drop into the main. This is so risky, yeah. Oh my god, he was a little bit indecisive there and ended up being a bit scary, losing a medevac, maybe unnecessarily. But the Colossus are now going to have to separate from the army to take the fight here. And Clem has so much. A few Marauders in the back taking a little bit of damage. It does look like eventually Clem will be cleaned up as Charge Zealot reinforced. If he can keep the medevacs alive, though it could have been okay. I think that was a better trade for SKillous. Clem not really finding much damage elsewhere. SKillous is a pylon. Yeah, he has a pylon on the north side. That's just being so annoying here for Clem. It will finally be cleaned up, but not before a few swipes go down here from the Stark Templar.
Yeah, I think SKillous has done a really good job with his harass, his army control and whatnot, but it seems to be 2 actually pretty similar styles of play. Both of these players want to try to hit each other. Neither wants to just sit back and do nothing, but at the same time, both of them have been so on point between their defenses. You know, when you have tons of Zealots pouring into your main and you can't kill the Prism for 2 whole minutes, but you don't fall below 68 SCVs, that's miraculous hold. He's really done a phenomenal job of staying alive and not letting SKillous do too much. So DTs are going to blink onto the army. Scans, though. Morphs an Archon in the middle of his forest to bait tank shots, which is also very cute. The disruptors are going to whiff, though. He needs to be cautious of his anti-air, too. If those stalkers get picked off, or if he can fight him shooting across this air gap, there's a lot of damage he could do.
Some nice save there with the Prism. Stalker blinking forward to try and pick off some of these Vikings. The Viking count's still a little bit low. There are 8 in total, but they're not here just yet. Clem's army very chewed up here. How many medevacs has he currently got alive? He still has 5, but I'm guessing they're probably starting to get a little bit low on that energy as Clem does back off, trying to replenish the rest of his army. But Outlaw has remained pretty solid, and I think that's really important for the way SKillous is playing. Tanks have been able to do so much damage that SKillous has never been able to fully close that gap and kill Clem. And right now Clem's upgrades are really good as well. He's got +3 weapons, +2 armor, and then +1 vehicle weapons, but 3-3 has finished for SKillous.
Dude, I have to say, SKillous being able to maintain these Colossi all the way to this stage of the game with these fight was really impressive. He had such a bowl-over type of army, but Clem coming in with the overwhelming, the Vikings landing to help deal with the Stalkers. They do their double damage to those mechanical units, including the Disruptors, but you have to be cautious throwing those Vikings away because double Colossi production is now on the market again for SKillous, and he took that purple gas base in the Southwest, and that really does mega bolster the income, like equivalent of 2 bases worth of normal Vespine geysers.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, he's going to mine them out twice as fast, but hey, more money. More money.
Yeah, no problems right now for SKillous. I would like to see him maybe look at picking up Storm here. He has the gas to support it, and I do think it could end up paying dividends, although Clem's micro has been very good, I must say. He's been splitting well. His stutter flipping against Zealots is just unbelievable. Disruptor now going to fire out one of those Purification Novas, but a big whiff. There are a lot of Zealots here right now, though. Clem going to be forced to back off, try and save his ghosts as they are very beaten up right now. Clem's EMPs have been great, but now we're looking at SKillous starting to get a pretty intimidating army once again with the Colossus backing, and Clem hasn't produced Vikings, instead opting to go into Liberators. What do you think about that, Nate?
You know, I actually think that Liberators are definitely the better choice than Vikings if you can use them properly, because you can always target fire down the Colossi if you get the advanced ballistics upgrade. But those Zealots and DTs, very hot and cold on whether he wanted to actually engage. And I think considering that he did end up losing everything, it would have been better to just let them fight than kind of tiptoeing them back and forth, not sure if he could save them. Those ghosts, the nice thing about them as well is even just a handful adds in a lot of extra damage because they do that bonus to the Zealots. They do help clean out the tanking units of the opponent, and he's forced to use another overcharge to get all the shields back on his units. Clever use at that. And doing a little bit of side harass at that east expansion at the same time. But until you get upwards of like 6+ Liberators, it's not really going to do quite what you're looking for against these types of units. More DTs are here. He has a scan available, though.
Scan goes down, and now we see the Liberators firing away. They get that siege up. There's a super battery maybe available here. It does look like Clem may not be able to close the gap here. Liberators being forced to back off. No, they can stay and fight. There's no anti-air at all right now for SKillous, who needs to try and find something to push back these Liberators. Colossus takes a pot shot. The cannons will go down under tank fire, and this base is forced to go under a full evacuation. Clem gaining a lot of ground on the map right now.
Yeah, very well done. He baited that shield battery overcharge off the EMP before this engagement, so he actually, which only just now got it back off cooldown, and that period of time was enough to settle a planetary with a fully saturated mineral and gas line on the west side of the map. And that takes a ton of gas, no pun intended, out of the tank for SKillous, losing that high yield Vespine geyser base.
Yeah, not too many workers really have gone down over the course of the game, both sitting in the mid 10 region, but the army resources lost here is favoring Clem now by 8,000, and that's a very large amount, especially when he is mining more. There's 3 arrows in the bottom of the UI indicating that if we're using that one, I'm not certain. Clem now has reached 3-3. He's adding on more vehicle upgrades. He has a big drop coming into the main right now, and it is those chunky boys going to start taking down some of the tech. There's not really much here to defend, and only one pylon powering some of these gateways.
Yeah, well, he's forcing him to spend warpins there too while he tries to push the southwest base. And he does not have advanced ballistics, so the Liberators don't have quite the range that they could, but once he gets +2, they're going to start to 2-shot the Stalkers, which I think is the most impactful upgrade for TVP outside of just your regular bio ups. And SKillous just collapses. GG is called. Very well done. Game number 1 by Clem, but I also want to throw a bone to SKillous because that was a phenomenally played game by him as well. Really took who's often touted now as a top Terran in Europe. He took him to the limit.
Yeah, SKillous' harass and stuff has been incredible. I think in game 2 going forward, maybe lean on that a little bit more. Try and find a bit more aggression, a bit more damage there, because Clem in that late game, I mean, I just can't take it back from the constant EMPs on the bio, on the Protoss bio, so to speak, because none of those Zealots or Archons ever had shields, right? They were just melting. So I just think if you let Clem get that far in as a Protoss, you've got to have something special in order to beat him.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to take Clem down because he is so good at all of the standard things, but his crisis management was also just incredible in that game. So many Terran players fall apart when there's a prism in your main, 4 Zealots spill out, suddenly 6 more warp in, and your bio units are getting cleaved to pieces as they come out. Your SCVs die in 3 seconds, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't have a chance to pull them away. But Clem says no. He says, well, first of all, he had a couple of extra workers, but then at the same time, he didn't fall below 68. I was watching the worker count the whole time that fight was happening. And I'm like, he's trading Zealots for bio and he's not actually getting like damage done to the economy or the infrastructure. That's as much as you can ask for as a Terran, especially considering that in that fight, he didn't kill the Colossi and lost all of his Vikings. So he had nothing that was even going to be good at chasing that down. And of course, the cherry on top is that he flew into a missile turret on the way out. But really, really well done game number 1 by Clem. Cannot say enough. Also equally impressive by SKillous. Just Clem able to edge it out with some really good engagements.
We move on now to our next map, Ever Dream Ladder Edition. And this is going to be one that SKillous really needs to pull back. Now, we do have a pretty good map and an opportunity for him to do so. But for now, our player in the left representing Cascade Gaming, he is the Russian Protoss player. It's SKillous.
And his opponent leading the series, 1-0 in the Northeast, the Blue Terran, representing Team Liquid. He is Clem.
Ooh. Solos get me all pumped up, mate. Getting ready for another game here. Hopefully another one just as back and forth as that. There were definitely moments where SKillous looked like maybe he had an edge. Clem specifically, his Vikings maybe not kept as alive as they should have been, which is a very interesting thing to say. But so far the opening's looking pretty standard. Just Reaper expand, Gate Cyber expand most likely here from our Protoss player, and everything just cooking as it should.
I think it's worth drawing attention as well to the start that the last game had, which was also a bit unusual. Clem was able to get 2 Reapers in a bunker behind the natural mineral line of SKillous. So assuming that doesn't happen again and he's able to kind of have the position, the awareness, I don't think that we'll see quite the same tough time that he had in that mid game. SKillous made up for it by being incredibly greedy, right? He took a crazy fast third, went straight to Colossi with really nothing else. He didn't have Blink Stalkers. He didn't have like Phoenix to stop drops. He was just like, okay, I'm pretty sure Clem is going to play standard out of this and play a little bit passively. So he was able to kind of get back in it with that. But I do wonder what's going to happen in a scenario where Clem doesn't get to kill, 4 or 5 probes at the beginning of the game and delay the natural mining, dealing lots of damage to the Adept, the Stalker, etc. He's going for a fast concussive Mirage. I love it.
Is this a Cyclone follow-up as well, where you go Cyclone, Concussive, Marauders?
I don't think so.
No?
This is kind of like a meme build in a way. So you can do different things with this. Like, I mean, it's not to say that he couldn't have gone Cyclone, but you do this into like a 2 or 3 racks follow-up.
Okay.
And what makes this build very memey is that Concussive Shell is almost, if you time it like this, it will almost 100% of the time finish for whatever your opponent sends at your base first. So he moves the Marauder to the outside because he doesn't want the Adept to try to shade away. If the Marauder has Concussive and tags the Adept will not be able to get away. Like, even if it starts to shade running away right now, one Marauder will almost always kill the Adept. I actually I like this build. I used to do it a little bit. But you know, it's one of those fun ones you don't get to see very often. It is very hard to actually do anything aggressively with it because stalkers move faster than marauders. So even though marauders are better than stalkers, if your opponent is able to chrono boost out, you know, and get up to like, you know, 3 or 4, if they have enough to do micro and kill you, you can't go home. So it's actually nice for him that SKillous only built a sentry, because 2 marauders, even with the shield battery, like he could try to force an overcharge here, but it kind of goes back to what I said. Like the marauders don't have any staying power. Like they do damage and they slow, but they don't heal. They don't have the DPS to actually break a stalker with a shield battery behind it. So SKillous is just going to take that crazy fast third base. But the real power of this build is supposed to be, wait, he got a tech lab on the second barracks as well. Okay. Ooh, and he didn't use the tech lab after it finished concussive. Okay, that's actually quite odd, to be honest with you. Is he just going to start double pumping marauders and do like a double medevac drop of what, 8 marauders? Is that what the goal is here? Is an 8 marauder drop? I don't know. I'm surprised that the second barracks didn't have a reactor on it. I'm only just now noticing that, but I mean, it's kind of like whatever, man, I guess.
Yeah,
I feel like I'd be confused. I'd be confused if I was SKillous. Yeah, my opponent has 2 tech labbed racks and he's about to start building 2 medevacs at a time. So you're like, oh my God, I guess it's going to be a crazy number of marauders.
Now, we do see a robotics bay on the way here from SKillous. Did he make any immortals? No, I wouldn't be against seeing the mortal produced here. It's going to be a very quick Colossus. And this, I mean, is a little bit scary. Concussive cell marauders, if 8 of them get a medevac and can drop around, there's certainly maybe a window here for Clem, as I say, certainly, maybe.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I've been staring at these barracks, and he has actually been mostly building Marines even after, so... He's going to settle at 4 marauders, which I still find it a little bit odd, but I guess his concern was that he just wanted to make sure he gets stim and combat shield at the same time, but then decided he couldn't afford combat shield, I guess, so he just gave up on that. Because he has that gas as natural, one of them, so the gas should not be too much of a limiting factor. But this fast push on the third, let's see what he can get done. There's really not a lot. It's just that one Colossus that's going to be the big daddy keeping everything alive, and he does have the battery overcharge as well. SKillous' observers once again just want to call out. He sees everything. He knows what is what.
Without tank to force this push, looking like it's doomed to fail. The Widowmine does borrow, and we'll get a bit of DPS off there. Actually, there's really no support. We're going to see the stim quick. Concussive shells, of course, is done. The Colossus are able to micro a nice force field just to completely zone away all of these units. I'm going to try and trade out as efficiently as he can after taking down that battery. Was it worth it for Clem, Nate?
I kind of like it, you know. It's a bit of like a come see, come saw type thing. It's not, he didn't really do a lot, but he killed some expensive units. And what did he really lose, right? 2 marauders and a handful of Marines. Not the most valuable. He denied the battery overcharge. He killed, and of course killed the shield battery. But at the end of the day, I think if he was able to grab the Colossus there, then we're all like, yeah. Then chat erupts into just an endless mass of hog jams.
Of GG.
You know, spam this rapscallion for the Italian. I don't know.
That's a good one.
He's not Italian, but I'm like, that's when people just start losing their minds, I guess.
I'm usually one of those people. Now, extended thermal lance is nearly done. The Colossus count has now reached the triple. We have Forge on the way, Twilight Council on the way, and a lot of gateways coming down from SKillous as he explodes onto that 6th gas economy. Lots of racks being added on from Clem, who continues to play very standard. His starport is 2nd starport. It's quick, no?
Yeah, well, this one cell getting into the 3rd is always annoying. They've, they're tanky boys, and he's actually going to get caught by the force field trying to put that pressure on up the ramp. Walking up those tight choke points when you don't know what's on the other side is always dangerous. Actually, the AI gets baited a little bit there and takes some more damage onto those Marines and Marauders. But this map, you gotta be careful with some of those wide angles they can hit you on that 3rd that he has chosen for this game, because you can't really wall that off. Not very easily, at least. So it's like, is he going to throw down a bunker in that mineral line to keep it safe? He's going to try to keep the pressure up, but SKillous did a really good job of splitting his army. His position is just perfect. He has so much in that main. He has plenty of stalkers on the north to deflect this medevac. So Clem's just like, okay, I guess I can't really do much of anything to you, because he's just very, very solid. And it's not like I left 8 stalkers in my main and my Colossi are at the 3rd, because then the 3 medevac drop of just Marauders would absolutely wipe the floor with 8 stalkers. So really good decision making thus far out of SKillous. The biggest thing I noticed out of him in game number 1 was just that it was so hard to kill his Colossi. The Colossi survived almost every single fight until the very bitter end.
Yeah, Clem kind of adjusting this game though. He's been producing 4 Vikings at a time to react to starports. His Viking count is already at 6, soon to be 7. He's adding on ghosts and really starting to get up to that Terran tech. And we said in between games that if Clem can get to late game where he can control his spellcasters and his air units, he's very difficult to beat. Now, that being said, SKillous has been pretty much completely unharassed. He's been able to get a decent economy going. He has upgrades, but they're coming very soon. Is he playing off of just one forge? Yes, he is. Kind of would like to see the second one go down pretty soon, as he is taking his 4th. Immortals are being produced here from SKillous as well, and I really like that. Very good at taking down these bulkier units, and if they can get on top of tanks and things. Great units here with the upgrades coming in. We have a little bit of a run by, but this shouldn't be able to get too much done.
Yeah, these Zealots do kind of get chunked by those mines. The Colossus getting peppered at by the Viking count that you were discussing earlier. Did a good job of getting the count up. Does kill one of the Colossi. Very nice. Very nice indeed. He does finally start the armory, by the way. I was going to say, Clem actually, he had his 1-1 done for a very long time, but he has had a rather limited capacity to further increase that upgrade lead. And that scan too. Oh, is this Prism just going to die to one turret? No, it never does. There we go.
Too fast.
Too fast, too furious. A warp prism story. Oh.
Prism finally going down. I think I'm having some lag issues here, mate.
Oh well, if it derps a bit, and I gotcha. I can just talk. I can talk about the video game. It is all good. Clem goes down to settle the 4th command center on the east side while he makes a big push. Planetary will not be done in time for the Zealot run by that is headed there, though, so that could get a little bit dicey. Does have a good amount of ghosts, but does not have the EMP upgrade just yet, so won't be able to get the complete blanket on the army, I don't think, without some sick positioning. But this cliff spot that he's holding on to is really nice because the Stalkers can't really blink under that either.
Yeah, Stalker's going to get a couple of shots off here on the Vikings, but the Vikings dishing out some pretty hefty DPS on these Colossus, which have now been forced to retreat back a long way. And now the army just doesn't have that big AoE damage. It doesn't have that big source of consistent DPS. SKillous really needs to take down Clem's army. Clem's army as well is very, very Marauder based. We're looking at 26 Marauders, only 13 Marines. So really, really strong tanky army here. I'd like to see more and more Immortals coming in from SKillous. But Clem is now getting that enhanced shockwaves of 2-2 halfway done. He's going to take a pretty big upgrade lead now, Nate.
Yeah, no, he's got an absolutely beautiful position. It's kind of a weird. It's been quite a weird thing to watch. He did do a good job of saving the 4th. Wasn't able to get it established immediately, but it is alive. He scans the 4th of SKillous. He's like, okay, well, that's going to be a tough nut to crack as he continues to move around. As you were saying, he has a pretty insane number of Marauders. And I guess if he gets enough ghosts mixed in, Zealots won't be the end of the world. He really just wants to be able to bowl over everything that's here because there's a lot of armored units. It's a lot of Stalkers. It's very Colossi heavy. But as he adds more Archons, and he's got 6 of them now in there, and more Zealots, the Marauders are going to become less and less useful. Got to make that Liberator transition soon, brother.
That's exactly what I was thinking. No Liberators coming in this late. It's a little bit of a surprise as we break the 12-minute mark here. We can see air upgrades as well coming in here for Clem. So it certainly looks like eventually we may see that transition. Fusion going down as well, which even more onus to the fact that he probably will look for Liberators and that upgrade on them very soon from the Fusion Core. Dark Shrine on the way here for our Protoss player, who's continuing to do a good job of not taking damage as well. His upgrades now coming in 2 at a time, plus 3 is already on the way. As long as he can keep his Colossus and these Archons alive, there's a lot of Vikings going down all of a sudden.
Yeah, but this is a really good position for the Vikings to at least do their jobs. He gets one of the Colossi, then gets the Observer. That Disruptor is probably the most scary thing I see, but it's quite tricky because the Colossi are such a deceptive unit. If they are shooting one Marauder at the edge, they do nothing. If they are shooting anything center mass, then it's like you're dealing out incredible amounts of damage. And this is one of the things that, Terran versus Protoss is just really hard for both players because you have to keep your Colossi somewhere they can actually shoot while also not being exposed to the Vikings. And I think the fact that he still has all his Colossi, most of his Colossi alive, just kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. He's been doing a phenomenal job of protecting those power units. And Clem has never been able to get into a position where he's like, all right, now I just A-move him. I killed everything I needed to kill. Now I just, I'll just go finish the game because he can't build Colossi that fast. And that situation has never occurred.
What do you think about SKillous never adding on Storm? It seems to be something he doesn't go for. I know this army is very Marauder heavy, but it is good against Vikings and things like that. Disruptors I do like, offering out a little bit more DPS, but look at Clem splitting, absolutely beautiful, and the Vikings have free reign over these Colossus. Now there's just nothing left. The Vikings will land and shot away at all of this army.
Beautiful.
Absolutely melting, and Clem just taking a dominant fight up here on the north side of Everdream.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. I do think you got to remember that the Vikings do not have stims, so if that disruptor shot comes, you got to be careful. Oh. Beautiful shot, center mass. Well, and that's if you get a little overeager, you're like, all right, I'm just gonna go kill him now. I landed my Vikings. He's like, well, I've got DTs, I've got disruptors, I've got a lot of charged zealots. It's not gonna be quite that easy. So he says, you know what? That's fine. You make a good point, sir. I'm just gonna go up and try to do some damage to that fourth base. But he just built 5, now 6 DTs. He's got double pumping Colossi. Shadow Stride's about to finish now. Advanced Ballistics is done. We don't have +2 ship weapons started yet, but the Liberators are going to become a much bigger factor in the game now, or at least they should when he can afford to get a good number out. He's only got 1, so I'm like, they should become a factor, but it's not. He's not there yet.
He's listening. 2 more disruptors here, 2 more Liberators even here in the production tab. Clem's free, getting dangerously close to completing, and that's going to make these trades with the ghosts and the continual EMPs that much more efficient. This is a very nice run by here from SKillous, who does find a good amount of damage. He's going to kill around about 10 workers. This Zealot, unfortunately, fated to meet his doom under that planetary. Colossus production beginning again, which I do like, because of course so many Vikings have come down. We're now on over 7, a very healthy number with those air upgrades, and that first Liberator going to siege up, force some lost mining time here in a very, very annoying position to deal with.
Yeah, now he's reaching the point of the game where he's saying, okay, SKillous, you have to build Stargates now if you want to be able to mine your bases anymore, and that's, of course, going to be tricky. SKillous is not that rich. The Colossi, unfortunately, taking an absolute beating, but the Vikings aren't target firing, so their damage gets split across both of them. And now there are still 2 Colossi alive, which should definitely not be the case. A great spread, though, from Clem as he continues to move in, sieging at both of his Liberators over this army. And this could be the tipping point now. Up 50 army supply, 60, as he pummels his way through the center and takes the series.